the previous videos, we mentioned about producing an assignment report. It was mentioned that in the assignment report, you need to provide the details of the project, demonstrate and justify the analysis and design of the project, present the design output of the project, and also highlight the lesson learned from the assignment. There will be components of the project informations and general requirement. You need to demonstrate your analysis and design process, summarize your design output and present them in the structural plans and detailings, as well as provide necessary informations to the lecturer regarding the assignment in terms of how you plan the project, what is the progress of your assignment throughout the semester, what are the contributions by each group members, as well as the lesson learned through the assignment. In these videos, we're going to proceed our discussions regarding the characteristic of a good assignment report. This is also very important to you, as there are techniques to produce good report so that the message is clearly delivered for you to obtain good result in your assignment. First, your report needs to be specific and custom-made for your project. You know that producing an assignment report is not producing a lecture note, nor it is producing a textbook. Whichever being written in the report, it needs to be specific and custom-made for your project. Whichever that is irrelevant to your project shall not be incorporated within the assignment report. This is the common mistakes of the students, spending so much efforts explaining heads and tails of various types of design, which at the end of the day, those which are really meaningful and applicable in the assignment are really minimum. This leads to a big portion of your assignment report to be irrelevant to your project. There should be descriptions and right interpretations of your project. Normally, the informations are given in the architectural drawing, and probably the setting of the structures, such as the conditions, are mentioned by the lecturers during the briefing. You will have to record all those settings and conditions, as it's going to become a part of the design considerations for your project. You will need to interpret the architectural drawing and give explanations in terms of your interpretations of the project. You may need to make necessary assumptions, which is required for you to complete your analysis and design, and its relevancy need to be demonstrated through the analysis and design process. There should be a strong linkage between the project details, design step, and design output. This is also another part of the common mistake done by the students, where most of the students they outline a series of design considerations, which is in the mode of lecture. Some of those considerations is not applicable to the local situations. For example, you're talking about the freeze and thaw effects, which is never a concern in the tropical countries. You will need to be careful to whichever that you have written in your assignment report. All those should be taken into considerations during your design, and your design output should reflect that those considerations are taken into considerations. Next is about the quality and the depth of your assignment report. It at least needs to be thorough. That means all the critical aspects of the design has been covered. Every single structural effects, both at the ultimate limit state and also the serviceability limit states, need to be adequately covered. Next, it needs to be conceptually correct. That is the main reason of the right design of the structural building. Next, the design outcomes are properly discussed and verified. Most of the students also miss this, Some manage to summarize the design outcome, but without discussions. You should discuss a bit regarding your design outcome, trying to correlate back to the project details as well as the design steps as a part of the justifications. And then more importantly, your design outcome needs to be systematically verified. It is not just showing the outcome of your calculations. Your result needs to be checked and verified. Next, a good design report should effectively communicate the thoughts, ideas, and knowledge. It should be clear that what, why, and how was it done, and what was obtained and learned. The assignment report should be concisely written. If you can complete a statement without compromising the delivery of the message, as well as the amount of information to be delivered within 5 words, you should not go for 10 words. You should use the fewer words as possible. Make every single words and phrase count within your assignment report. Your writing should have a high concentration of the meaningful informations. Remove those which is irrelevant. You should also minimize the repetitions and the redundancy. Those which has already been stated in the early part of your assignment report, you don't have to continuously remind the readers. It is not that the thicker the assignment report, you will get higher marks out of the assessment. Producing a thick assignment report is easy. You can incorporate everything in the assignment report, including those which is relevant and irrelevant, and you can continuously repeat certain points in order to make out the length of the design report. This is not necessary, and it makes the report seems to be rather lengthy. In fact, the more difficult part is producing a short report, which is actually concise, only covering the necessary things without compromising in terms of the amount of information to be delivered, and make the message to be effectively delivered to the readers. This should be a good design report. You will need to only cover the essentials and the relevance. Next is about the readability. The readability is related to how easy the readers can read through your design report and how easy the reader can understand your report. You may have perfect grammar, which most of the students feel that should constitute a good assignment report, but the report is not readable. There will be a lot of questions pop up within the mind of the reader as the reader reads along. The report is not made friendly to the reader to read through and to comprehend the content. Therefore, you will need to consider about this readability. Normally, it will be associated with poor English writing. You will need to provide appropriate levels of details so that all the intended readers can understand. When we talk about the readers, normally you have no control over the reader in terms of their reading habits. As theoretically, your design report is to be produced and read by a lot of people. There will be all sorts of people having different background, practicing different reading habits. A good assignment report will need to find a conditions which is optimized and make sure the readers of different backgrounds and reading behavior to be able to understand the content of the report. The reader can be with or without the prior knowledge of the content given in your design report. That means the reader can be your lecturer who already have some prior knowledge regarding the design. It can also be your juniors who haven't started the course yet. It can also be the students from the other engineering field who have some basis of engineering but do not have the principles and theories regarding the reinforced concrete design. You will need to write your design report in the comprehensible manner that nearly everyone can understand without compromising the quality of the information to be given to the reader. There will also be the readers who do or do not read every single words of your design report. If you imagine yourself with a given report, do you actually read every single one from the first word to the last word of the design report? Most likely, you are not the one that going to read every single word of the report. Of course, there are people prefer to read every single word of it, but I would say that not everyone will read through every single word. Probably less than 50% of the content in your design report. How do you make sure that the readers who do not really read through every single word to be able to acquire all the necessary informations as provided in your report? This requires proper plannings and techniques. There will also be the readers who do or do not read in accordance to the proper sequence from the start to the end. You cannot expect every reader to read in proper sequence. Some experienced readers, they will go straight to more significant sections in order for them to gain the most out of the readings. Only when they need to know further, they will go for the other sections, complementing those significant sections. Having this to be aware, you know that you need to produce your design report to fulfill the needs of all sorts of the readers. Next, you should use short, simple sentence instead of long and complex one. This is for you to minimize your grammatical mistakes, and this is going to help the comprehensions of the readers. Especially when you deal with long and complex sentence, there will be structures within structures of the sentence, which the readers need to first analyze the structures and in their mind do some sorting, which piece of information is going to which item, in order for them to comprehend the meanings of your sentence. This will affect the smoothness of the reading, and the readers cannot be fully engaged with the reading. Or more specifically, the readers might not be able to stay within the storyline throughout the reading period, which the readers might need to jump out of the storyline, analyzing the sentence structures in order to comprehend the meaning before jumping in back into the storyline to understand the content of your report. To avoid all this problem, normally we just construct simple sentences. Only when it is necessary or it cannot be accomplished by simple sentences, then we use long and complex sentences once a while. You need to keep in mind that there should be only one essential message in a paragraph. Don't mix up in one paragraph with several messages. This will lose the emphasis, and it is difficult for the readers to comprehend. A typical paragraph should consist of 3 to 6 sentences. It shouldn't be too long, and normally it won't be just one sentence. You will need to disclose the most critical point or the main point in the paragraph as early as possible, which normally it will be in the first sentence of the paragraph. Go straight to the point. In the first sentence of the paragraph, state the core message of that particular paragraph. And even within that first sentence, the first half of the sentence should have the relevant message effectively delivered. This is where the typical reader will pay the most attention out of the entire paragraph, and the following sentences, it will be complementing and supporting the core message of that particular paragraph. This one is also to cater for those who don't actually read every single word in your assignment report. This kind of experienced readers have a tendency of reading the first sentence of each paragraph, and you should allow the reader to do so by reading only the first sentence of each paragraph throughout your design report. The reader should be able to obtain at least 70 to 80% of the message or significant information as given in the design report. You will need to have your design report to be clearly outlined. Give a good subtitle for each section, as is going to imply the content within the report, as well as within that particular section, as there will be readers who do not actually follow your sequence of writing. Some readers may go for the project details, skip the demonstrations of the design step, go straight to the design output. You should have the design output properly summarized, and then look back into your design steps and probably the conclusions of the reports. The sections need to be properly organized. There should be a strong linkage between different sections, and the purpose of each section should be made clear. You will need to allow this kind of reader to gain the most out of it based on their reading habits. Next, you should have a good summary for your design report. You will need to concisely list out the design considerations or assumptions, the specifications, as well as the reference with proper justifications. You know that the design considerations and assumptions will affect the calculation step later. All these need to be put in one place for quick reference of the readers, and it should be thorough, covering every single aspect, and there should be good justifications for those design considerations and assumptions. You should also list out the specifications and details which you're going to adopt during the design calculations later. These include the values used, such as the properties of the materials, the loading that you analyze, as well as the equation that you use, and so on so far. You should also provide good reference of every single item which you have obtained from the code of practice, such as Eurocode 1 and Eurocode 2. Which clause is it? Where does the equation come from? Where do you obtain those values? It should be clearly written. You need to produce your design report in a manner that is easy for somebody else to replicate the entire design. They know where to find those details as well as the equations. You should also highlight the design checking criteria, equations and references. Then you need to outline your calculated results. Don't forget to indicate the uniques of the values as well as the design outcome, whether it's going to pass or fail, as well as the checking against the requirements. All this needs to be clearly indicated in your report. Your calculation steps need to be clearly demonstrated. This includes the calculated values. You know that you're supposed to demonstrate the calculation steps, and most likely in your assignment, there will be more than one element that you design. That means there will be repeating steps. You don't have to show the calculations for every single member. This will make your report to be highly repetitive. That means there will be a lot of redundancy in your report. You just need to demonstrate the calculation steps, probably through some descriptions in terms of the design, the usage of the equations, and make sure the equations are properly numbered. And then you tabulate the values in tables. Clearly indicate and refers those values with the relevant equations in your descriptions. If you still wish to demonstrate your calculation step for every single member, you can put those in the appendix. The idea here is every single equations should appear only once in your main content of your report. You need to demonstrate the applications of those equations, and you will need to demonstrate the relevant value as obtained from those equations, and you need to allow the reader to be able to compute those values in accordance to your demonstrations. Adopting the equations that you mentioned, the calculated value is correct. That is the rationale of demonstrating the calculation steps. You should also provide adequate information for the readers to replicate the calculations and the acquired result. This is also very important. In case of existence of some missing link in between your descriptions or the demonstrations, the readers cannot replicate the calculations and is unable to cross-check whether the value that you gave is correct or not. What you can do here is you can have one person in your group doing those explanations and demonstrations, producing those values, and ask another member to replicate the result based on the descriptions given in the report. And then you compare the results as produced by the first member with the result produced by the second member. If you found that the person trying to replicate the steps cannot produce the numbers, that means there will be a missing link in between and your explanations might not be clear. This is the advantage of having several members in a group, where each group members can complement each other in making a better design report. Next, a good report needs to be coherent. That means the table of content, the section, the page numbers supposed to be coherent throughout the report. This also sometimes happens where the page numbers of different sections is not in line with the table of content, which is likely due to some editing after the compilations and the editor forgot to update the table of content. Next, all figures, tables, and equations must be mentioned or discussed in the text. There are going to be figures, tables, and equations in the report. Make sure they are properly numbered and comprehensively captioned, and they should be properly mentioned or discussed in the text. You cannot just show the figures, tables, or equations without guiding through the readers. This will leave the readers to guess what it is about, how it is related to your content, and etc. The equation should be properly numbered. It is for referencing when you need to demonstrate the calculated values in the tables. And when you produce the equations, make sure all the symbols are properly described, and preferably the descriptions are given immediately after you show the equations. You may also need to produce a list of the symbols as standardized throughout the design report. Don't just simply show the equations and expect the reader should be able to use those equations to generate results. There should be consistency in terms of the information given in the report, which include the calculation steps and the design summary, as well as the technical drawing and the presentations. This also normally happens among the students. Again, because different person doing different part of the assignment, sometimes we observe that the information given in the report sometimes is not in line with those given in the technical drawing, or sometimes the information given in the presentations is different from the report. You will need to be careful and ask one of the members to cross-check every single one of this.